My post vise broke. Well, when I bought it, it had already been repaired. I bought this thing when I was 13. I'm 37 now, so that gives you some perspective. But yeah, it snapped off. It had evidently broken there, and the previous owner welded it. Not bad for as much abuse as it had. I had it kind of mounted on a stupid little tripod spindly thing so that it was collapsible and fit in my truck. So I cut that off, got rid of it. I did salvage my plate here. I'm going to grind it off on the bottom. And then I've got a piece of square tubing here. Of course, it's mitered. I'll have to fix that. I'll cut it off. You know, that's not high. It'll be workbench height. And then I've got another one of these big square plates from where I used to work. And I don't know. We may cut some gussets too. I gotta put some holes in it for future reference for bolting it to the floor possibly. I hate things that scoot around. Unless they're meant to. But yeah, I have some more steel outside. I'll get this cleaned up and get it welded on here. This was kind of a, how do we say this, interruption in the middle of a very busy week, but I gotta have my post vise. That one's not meant to smack. But I'm thinking, just kind of working my head through this, I may need to cut some gussets for it. We'll see where we go with that. But I might as well make a little tool holder on the back of it too somehow. And definitely put some places to put angle grinders and stuff like that as well. Because then it will become my main grinding station, because for grinding it shouldn't wiggle around too much. And then I can just wheel it outside in the summer and get rid of some of this. As you can see, it's just all over the place in here again. Yeah. That's what this morning is going to kind of start off with, is me wrapping my head around that. Okay, a little bit of a problem. Oops, sorry about that. If I use this mounting bracket, the original, I can't weld it to the tube. It'll be offset, like sticking way out, because the tube would stop at the edge of the steel plate there. It'd be sticking 3 inches out past the tube. I want this flush with the tube to give it more support. So, on the back of my bench there used to be this guy, because at one point I had this vise on this bench. And this one will allow me to weld it right to the plate, flush. Pretty sure that's cast iron. I don't want to mess with it no more. And then I can mount this more securely. I'll still use wedge pins. I may tack them on the end to give it some more rigidity so they don't get loose. But they always get loose. That's why they're wedge pins. You can tighten them again. So that's where we're going to go there. And also, I was thinking, when I put the plate on for the top of this, see, I'll go this way. It'll be flush with this edge and stick out, oh, I don't know, maybe 10 inches or so out the back. And then underneath the plate on top, of course I'll gusset it on the sides, I'm going to stick a receiver tube. And what that will allow in the future, when I take that grinder, or that little bench grinder there and stuff, and put it on a receiver type system with a lock nut to tighten it, I'm going to do the same with my belt grinder. I'm going to do the same with a lot of my other little machines. Then what I can do is come to the back of this, slide it in, lock it in place, and then I have a pedestal for my grinders as well. I'm playing with the idea of making it into a tong rack as well, or a hammer rack. Got it running in the back of my mind. But for the project I'm going to do today, I may not get completely started on this. I can use that little vise for the light duty stuff I have to do for a bit, but I'm eventually going to need my heavy vise back. And speaking of those, I have another one, but I need to forge a new spring for it. So I may be making 2 of these pedestals for sure. Yeah. The idea there is it catches the grinder dust. It doesn't catch a lot of it, as you can see. It catches some. I'd say 2/3. But I don't know. Everything's a work in progress. First order of business is to trim off this extra angle piece. My tip's bad. I figured this one was starting to go anyway. So change that out. Oh yeah, she toasted. She toasted pretty good. We don't want to grind. That defeats having a plasma cutter. We'll get the tip. And that's pretty toasted too. Got some saw stands from Northern Tool, and they've made this really simple. I mainly bought them for use with the chop saw, but they've got a flat place, a roller, and then these little bitty, the little bitty rollers you can use for sheet stock too. And it works. It worked really good for this situation. And then over here at the big drill press, I used another one. This is, I think, 1/2-inch plate, so it's not light for the base of this. I've got the holes. I'm drilling the holes for the bolt, to bolt it down to the floor. And then I'm going to cut this out so I can sit the tube in here. And then this will be the top. I'll discuss that later, but I drilled a little starting hole so I can plas this out really easy without getting a bunch of sparks in my face. But drilling this would have been not so fun. It's a fairly thick plate. But I've got one of those guys underneath, and the little rolly guys let it scoot around pretty good. So that's the next thing. I've got this is just a starting hole, and these are pilot holes. I'm going to drill those out to 3/4 inch now so I can get a good bolt in there, because there's going to be a lot of sideways force on this vise as well for twisting and wrapping scrolls and doing that kind of stuff. I think you get the gist of it. I'm actually really impressed by that. That's at the upper range of what this little machine can do. Well, I call it the magic toaster. Putting a glove here in comparison. It's the size of a toaster. Like, you know, the big ones that hold 4 slices. And my travel speed was relatively slow, but that's a nice size. I mean, nice. That's a nice curve for such a small machine. Now it's kind of moment of truth time here. I'll set this here and hopefully the tripod won't melt. This isn't one of those things where you can grab that thing I cut out and with your bare hand. It absorbed quite a bit of energy. Let's see if this goes in. And it does. I'll probably have about an 1/8 inch gap all the way around to fill, which is perfect. I welded it on both sides to counteract the warping. So here I just went and filled the groove. Now I'm going to grind off the high spot so it doesn't wobble around as much. It helped it keep a little straighter, at least. With that much heat, you know, you weld all the way around the square, something's going to hump up and be stupid. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do next, is just grind this down a little bit. I just finished repairing the actual vise, welding the leg back on. I cleaned it up with a grinder, you know, V'd it out and then welded around it. And then I did these stringers all the way around just to give it some reinforcement. I'm not going to grind that smooth. The object here is not to make it look like it's not been welded. It's just to keep it functional. And I'd rather see a piece like this get used to actually do metal work than sit in some museum and be perfectly restored like it used to be and just rot into the dirt. I'd rather use it. It's all finished. I've decided to forego sticking that plate out the back and putting that receiver hitch on and the tool tray for now. I'll just add stuff as I go. But I've kind of got something here for that is lighter and easier to transport when I need to. With this guy here, there's a piece of DOM tube on the bottom, and there's a little nub on the bottom of these vices. So I can actually remove this vise by pulling out these wedge pins. And that means I can fix it again if something happens to it. But there it is, finished, and on a stand I can move if I have to, but I can also bolt to the floor. And what's nice, the reason I didn't put the tool racks on it was you have a vise like this and the bench is here and all this stuff. It's nice to set tools on, but if you're trying to bend stuff with the vise or wrap stuff, it gets kind of hairy because it's all in the way. This vise, the jaws are the highest point and there's nothing around it, so I can use it for hot bending and wrapping spirals and scroll work and all that stuff. Yeah. Quite the neat little project. Now it still takes up just as much room on the floor, but it's useful. It's been sitting there for a long time. This video is little pieces. There's actually the initial part when it broke late last spring, and then now it's August and I'm finally getting around to fixing it. That bows out a little bit where it's repaired there. If it shows signs of bending, I'll put another strap and use it to suck it back and weld it in, or bolt it in so that it provides enough support. But versus one of these little machinist vise, if I go and beat on this thing here and the screw take all the force. Whereas with this guy, the screw takes none of the force. It all gets transferred to this leg. I'm also not going to bolt it down right away. I don't know where I'm going to put it. It's going to go someplace over there around the forge. But again, if I have something really big, I want to be able to have clearance all the way around it. So for a long time, I orientated on the plate like this, so I can put my big foot or go around behind it and plant both my feet on here and then facilitate twisting like cable or whatever into Damascus billets and those kind of things, or just doing decorative twists. Ultimately, it's probably going to go on some kind of blacksmithing skid that I can just pick up and move around. But trying to think of how to do that. I'd like it close to the anvil, but there again, with an anvil, I've got long stuff, and sometimes I do wrapping and twisting operations on the anvil too. You don't want them right next to each other. You want them a couple steps apart so that you can do a whole bunch of different things without having to mess around when you got hot steel in one hand.